Welcome to episode 37 of the Babes Talking Business podcast. Today, we have friend and fellow Gold Coast entrepreneur Michael Huxley, founder of the Huxley School of Makeup. Michael is a multi-award-winning creative with over 10 years experience working on major projects and productions throughout Australia and overseas. Within the last 12 months alone, Michael has led teams in BoraBora, Hawaii and Japan working on campaigns for companies including Village Roadshow, Movie Makers, L'Oreal, Balmain, TerryWhite, Saski, Eye of Horus, Lorna Jane, Moana Bikini and many more. Michael was also the makeup director for the official 2018 Commonwealth Games, running a department which created hair and makeup looks for over 7,000 people, including athletes, pro cast, mass cast, and headline talent. Michael is also the founder of the prestigious Michael Huxley School of Makeup, which is both industry and government endorsed as a preferred tertiary education provider and the #1 industry ranked makeup school in Australia and Asia Pacific, with graduates working in all aspects of this creative industry, including film, fashion, bridal, and cosmetics. In this awesome episode with Michael, we chat about so much. We talk about his evolution from freelancing to building his empire that is today. We talk about his mission and his legacy that he wants to leave behind, how he has overcome adversity in an industry which is extremely competitive and brutal, and the journey of how he built an educational institute out of something that was once just a hobby for him. Plus, so much more. You can also check out our website at www.babestalkingbusiness.com, where we have loads of information, including upcoming events we have later this year, including our Babes in Business Bali retreat. It is happening in June of 2020 at Commune. You do have to be a part of the Babes in Business team. If you want to learn more about how to join the team or how to come to the retreat, please do get in touch. We just want to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you to our sponsor, the Health Style Emporium, a 16-week online holistic program for women all around the world that educates, empowers, and inspires you to become the happiest, healthiest version of yourself without deprivation, diets, or extreme exercise. The Emporium has a 6-week mini program that has just wrapped up. We have just announced our winners, and we do have another 6-week mini program starting in early February for those of you who are really interested in up-leveling your health and starting 2020 off strong. Head over to www.thehsc.net to find out more. Without further ado, we are so excited to introduce to you the beautiful Michael. Welcome to the show, Michael. We are so excited to have you. We were just actually talking before we started recording and doing our meditative voiceover that we have been wanting to have you on the show for 2 years now.
Wow. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Yeah. Wow.
You, first of all, before we start, we just want to congratulate you and I just want to take my hat off to you. Like, you have seriously grown incredible amounts over the last few years, and I'm just so proud of you.
Aww.
And I think Shani's known you personally as well outside of business.
Yeah.
But I've only just seen you online. It wasn't until I started going to the Gold Coast Entrepreneurial Awards and I started seeing you wrapping up the awards. I'm like, all right.
Every year this guy wins a bloody trophy.
Well, Shani's mum was like my skin therapist, my therapist, just like all of those things. So
mine too.
So that's how we first connected, actually, through your awesome mum. So
yeah, and actually you did makeup for me when I was doing a photo shoot with a photographer that you shared a studio with. Like, it just goes way back.
A long time.
Way back.
And we were just talking about how those were such humble beginnings. Like,
oh yeah.
Do you remember that little studio?
Yes, very well.
Your little corner where you did your makeup. Like, I just can't believe how far you've come. Well, I can, but I'm just...
So fill in the gaps for me. How long ago was this little corner in a room? When was this? What year are we talking?
8 years ago. So it was a long time ago. I suppose, like, at the time, I didn't realise that I would be at the precipice of beginning something that would become this amazing school and this amazing business. But yeah, I guess I always had like big dreams and that sort of thing. But yeah, back then, wow, yeah, real humble beginnings.
So you're doing makeup. Is that where we started? You were doing makeup?
Yeah. So I was a makeup artist. I suppose, like, for me, like, moving to the Gold Coast and setting up the studio, that was like a bit of like a risk in itself. And again, at that stage, when I first opened that up, when I first got the studio, my initial thought wasn't, oh yeah, I'm going to start this massive school. That wasn't the thing. It was actually that I was just really keen to grow my own personal makeup business, and I really loved the industry that I was a part of. But I also was interested in art direction and interested in fashion and interested in photography and things like that too. So I suppose like opening up the studio seemed like a natural progression from being a freelance artist, where I'd had a bit of success there. So I guess it was just like time to open my own place and do it on the Gold Coast, because I was actually from Brisbane. So
Interesting. And so when you started freelancing, did you ever have that vision of having the school that you have now, which is like government funded now? Like, I mean, it's next
legit.
level. You have a legit business, my friend.
Interestingly enough, initially I didn't see that makeup could even be a career. All of my friends went and studied medicine and became doctors. Like I was sort of the odd one out in that. I did study at university as well, but I suppose I wasn't particularly interested in it, and maybe that was because I didn't. Maybe the subject matter that we were learning about wasn't super interesting. Maybe the format wasn't very exciting either. But also at the time, being young and silly, wanting to party all the time, and just typical teenager, didn't take it really seriously. I was working maybe 3 jobs and living in a bachelor pad. So for me, makeup was actually a creative outlet, and I loved being able to express myself and to be myself, and also to inspire confidence in other people. But at the time, I didn't really recognize it as being a career because I didn't understand the scope of what it was to be a professional makeup artist. And I didn't also understand how big the industry was, because I didn't really know anybody who was doing it so much. So I was really fortunate. I ended up getting a job with Yves Saint Laurent. And I think that was, I guess, like a turning point for me, because it was, I guess, an opportunity to start taking makeup more seriously. And I met some really inspiring people along the way who just opened my eyes up to what an enormous industry this is, and how it's like global and so linked with fashion and all the things that I loved. So I guess that's when I sort of started taking it seriously. So I worked for YSL for 3 years, and I sort of worked my way up. I got to travel as a makeup artist and met some really inspiring people, like I said. But I left YSL and then started doing freelance makeup artistry. I had a few really cool opportunities, and each job would sort of like propel me towards like the next one. And before I knew it, I'd built up like all these contacts, and I had quite a bit of success as a freelance artist. And this was all like pre, smartphones, really. Like, this was not that I'm that old, just saying. But it was still like all before like Instagram, that's for sure. And being able to like market yourself easily online. So I was fortunate in that, each job would kind of like propel me to the next, and it was like a very different thing. I think maybe back then, you were as good as your last job, so you would always hustle in every project that you worked on, and that sort of work ethic is something that I've always talked to the students about as well. But I guess then I took a crazy risk, and I'd done a photo shoot with a photographer on the Gold Coast, and we decided to open up a studio together at this tiny little building in Burleigh Heads. It was only like 90 square meters or something. And then started to develop what would become the brand. That's what it is now.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so when you started, so you were with a photographer and you started to open up a studio.
Yeah.
What was the vision there? Just like, it's kind of like natural progression. Like what? Like I still don't get how you go from there to having this massive school. Like, tell me, fill me in.
Well, it's interesting. I guess like I've always had a business acumen. I've always sort of been passionate about business as well.
What about business are you passionate about? I'd love to know what draws you to it.
Do you know what it is? This is interesting because like as a creative person, I was always battling with like this internal judgment around what it was to be a creative person because I felt like other people wouldn't necessarily take me seriously. And maybe like my family or, my friends who really had very typical sort of occupations and, very professional careers. So I was always like a little bit outside the box. But I thought to myself when I was opening the studio, I thought maybe there's an opportunity to really scale up what it is that I'm doing. Maybe I could really commercialize my creativity, beyond being a freelance artist. I really loved working for YSL and I had a really great job there. Like I learned so much. I was so inspired and I think that working in that environment was super cool and it was an amazing career and like they would really look after us, which was awesome. And I had really amazing mentors as well back then. But there was a point where I knew that it wasn't quite enough for me. And I went down to Sydney and they were looking to poach me for more of like a management position. And it was to manage a couple of like an area essentially in Sydney. Totally different direction to the artistry side of it that I really loved. Like I really loved, being on the teams that got to travel and do makeup and do workshops with people and all that sort of thing. I really enjoyed that element to it. And it was in that moment that I was like, no, this is probably not quite enough. Actually, it wasn't in that moment. There was a guy who was like one of the managers and he didn't realise that I was getting poached to go down to Sydney. And he was giving me a big lecture about something. I don't know, like I needed a haircut or whatever it was. Something,
ridiculous.
Yeah. And he said, you know what, Michael, one day you could be a manager, but you've got a whole bunch more things that you need to improve, blah, blah, blah. Gives me a big lecture. And in that moment, I was like, you know what, mate, I don't think that I want to be a manager. Yeah. And I don't want to be like you. I want to get out of here. I want to be an artist. And I want to, and then I guess that, like, I loved YSL, but then I wanted, to discover myself, and I wanted more. So then that's when I did freelance artistry. I had a great time, met lots of really interesting people. And then after that, I guess I had some sort of confidence to open up a studio on the Gold Coast, even though I wasn't ever based on the Gold Coast. So that was a bit of a challenge. And then after opening up the studio, that was when I sort of saw the potential of what an actual school could be and that there was actually a market for it. I'd studied makeup and during that process, like I didn't have the best experience. And I guess that because I already had an understanding of makeup because at the time I was working for Yves Saint Laurent and, you go from being supported and endorsed by a luxury fashion house to doing like a very basic makeup course at a school that was apparently supposed to be the best. And I was like, well, this isn't anything. This is not worth the money.
This is not YSL.
This is not YSL. This is not Yves Saint Laurent. This is rubbish. Like, and also I didn't see a lot of outcomes for any of the other students. I was the only one doing makeup after the course, like after the first week, after the month, after a year. Like there was nobody doing makeup afterwards in my group. And I was like, this doesn't ethical almost. It's like the reason why they're not getting jobs is because the course was so rubbish.
Yeah.
And at the time, I guess that would be, maybe plant a seed that would then help to inspire the school. And then when I opened up the studio, I decided to run workshops, like literally just like workshops for everyday people, or workshops for how to, master a particular technique. And then I started to notice that people wanted more than just one workshop. They wanted a program. So then I developed a program. And that took me a little while, but the first course that I wrote was like a fashion and beauty makeup artistry course. And at the time, it was a 3-month program.
I remember it.
And yeah, it was a 3-month program. And it's funny because it still has the essence of what we do today. It had like lots of photo shoots in it, and like a few photo shoots, and 3-month program, and they would come twice a week in the evenings and do these classes. And yeah, it got a bit of popularity. And I guess that was, the beginning of the school and the brand. And I guess that's what inspired me to continue to persist and to push it further and further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love it. I think if, like, reflecting on what you've just shared, if I can pick anything up, and it's a pattern that I hear in so many of our guests on the show, is that the idea of a business came from curiosity of what will happen if I do this. I think curiosity is always a big one, but also that want and need to do something on your own and have that creative outlet. Everyone that I talk to always says, I just wanted more. Like, working for someone else just wasn't going to be the answer.
I had a hunger for something, and I think above all, it was actually like a legacy was what I wanted. I was very inspired by Yves Saint Laurent himself, like Mr. Yves Saint Laurent. Like, he was this legendary human who started this brand from not really much of anything, but he was always pushing the boundaries, and in fashion in so many ways. After he died, he was like still remembered and loved. He's got such an iconic story, and I thought, I'd love there to be something like that for me. And I think that one of the things that was really at the heart of it was that, I'm a fabulous gay man. You might not be able to tell over here. but I think at the time, there was no gay marriage, and I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to have a family. I was hopelessly single, I guess I just thought to myself, because I at times had a turbulent relationship with family, and like I get along quite well with my family actually, but you know how it just is, like everybody has like ups and downs.
Especially when you're in your like early 20s and
and like rebellion, working out who you
exactly,
are and
like,
what you want.
I was really struggling with my identity for sure. And so for me, it was like I suppose I really wanted to create something bigger than myself and create like a legacy and, create like a family beyond my family. Like what would be my gift to the world? Like, if I can't procreate, if I can't like have a, be married or have like, this real family, maybe I could create that for myself in a different way. So then I suppose I thought about, well, what is a legacy, and what, what is significant about that? And I guess like a legacy could be a positive thing, it could be a negative thing as well. So really everything that I aspire for the school is something that has like a positive connotation associated with it. I like to consider myself quite an ethical person, and I really do believe that, ethics are incredibly important. So, with that said, everything that we do, everything has to be to the highest standard, everything has to be really meticulously thought through from the aspect of taking responsibility for our students and their objectives, and also the wider community as well. And I think that when you consider all of those things as a business person, and you have ethics and that sort of thing, they all contribute to a positive legacy also. So, yeah, that was my sort of at the beginning, and it still is today, that's like at the, I guess, like the core ethos of what it is that I do is, I suppose, making sure that I'm able to sustain a positive impact on myself and the wider community. So, yeah.
I love hearing that, because it's good to kind of get an insight when you talk to other entrepreneurs about what does drive them and what inspires them to start in the first place, but then also more importantly, what keeps them going. And obviously having that vision bigger than yourself and having like a legacy of what you want to not only be known for but remembered for.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, like, what do you want your school to be remembered for? What do you want to be remembered for? Like, what's that you want to leave behind, or people to kind of grab from that?
Yeah, do you know what? I wasn't even familiar with the word entrepreneur when I first started my business. So I just want to like get that right on the table. Like I feel like for me, obviously I knew what the word was. It wasn't like, but I feel like entrepreneurship wasn't like a catchword back then.
It wasn't.
And so I think like these days it's funny because like, you know, there's all these awards, business awards and things like that. So often people say, oh, Michael, you're very entrepreneurial. And then there's like almost like a label attached to that. Well, what is an entrepreneur? And sometimes I feel like that people can kind of go, oh, like entrepreneur. Like,
I'm going to be honest. I hate the word.
I know, it's gross. It's like...
if you want to explain it, let's do it. What's your definition of an entrepreneur? What is it for you?
Someone who has gone out there and started something, started from scratch and built something, always trying to build something in terms of business.
Yeah, I love it. Like at heart, entrepreneurship is a wonderful thing.
I think somebody makes something out of nothing. Essentially, like you said, you've got this creativity, you've got this something, but you couldn't find a vehicle where you could kind of put it to, so you just created the vehicle that you were looking for. That space, because like you said, there was no. You went to the school and it wasn't a good experience for you. People weren't getting jobs, and you're like, I don't want to be a manager, but I've got this really cool creative flair. I'm going to just create this something out of nothing and create a legacy, which I think is so inspiring, because I don't think you actually understand the magnitude of what you've done.
It's funny, like I guess for me, like, yeah, entrepreneurship is definitely an awesome thing too. It's awesome, great, I love it. But it's just more so what I meant is that, you know how sometimes people corrupt a word?
Yeah.
And I feel like you see it online, and that's probably what you're talking about as well, where you're like, oh, it's like it's kind of like, can be a bit cringy sometimes, because people sort of, they take it and then try to like, I don't know.
Everyone wants to be one.
Yeah. And I don't at all ever discredit people who work for other brands or work for people as well. Or just, if you're employed, fantastic. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like you have to break the 9 to 5 and, do that, because, that isn't for a lot of people. A lot of people, it's not right for them. And, in a lot of ways, I think working for other people is a lot simpler.
Absolutely. There's less risk.
Less
stress.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely been times in my journey where I'm like, maybe I'll just go to a 9 to 5. And I actually sit with that thought for a few minutes. Like, nah.
But we all have our strengths. And some people, we have listeners who listen to this podcast for their bosses who are entrepreneurs. Like, they listen to this podcast so they can help them. Like, I think we all have our strengths and our own purpose here. And I totally agree with you when you say that. But in talking about being a business owner and how it's not for everyone, let's talk a little bit about your journey in building what you have. Like, it has not been overnight. I know that. Yeah. It's been a long journey with lots of ups and downs. So let's start from the beginning. Like, how has it been when you look back and reflect?
I think I'm I'm actually quite proud of the school. I think it's like my baby. You know, I really do love it. And it has become exactly what I had wanted for it, you know. And I do actually recognize the significance of the impact that we have as a, you know, as a, I guess like a what is, I think, a fairly, you know, traditional business model in the community. Which is, so it's not like your typical like online business, which is very new. Actually, education has been around for a long time, and you know, education is Australia's third largest export. Like it's a big business. So yeah, but we definitely, I think, wow, like there has been a lot of learning. It's wow. Where do we start? Right at the very beginning, I guess. You know, I started a studio with somebody who at the time I was quite a good friend with, but we had become friends through work, actually. It wasn't like we were friends beforehand, and it was more like we'd done a photo shoot together, and we seemed to work quite well, and then it was like, oh, let's work together. But I guess there was like maybe personality clashes, and I'm not going to like write the guy off, but I think that, you know, we definitely clashed quite a bit. And where I might have come from, I feel like I was probably a lot more organized, and I had really solid goals. And I feel like with him, it was very different. Like he was a little bit more of a gypsy, and that kind of low-key attitude just wasn't for me. Like, I saw my future as being massive, not like...
I'm like, come on, just figure it out.
Kind of figuring it out along the way. So, yeah, so things were rough actually in that sense in the relationship. But the school sort of like... I think I just saw a whale. I'm so sorry. I literally just, I feel like I saw a whale. That was
there are
so
whales
cool.
out there.
Oh my gosh, wow. I'm not going to be distracted. So,
the listeners are probably like, where are you?
Yeah, sorry guys.
We're just sitting in my living room.
Yeah, we're just in the living room. But I just saw a beautiful something whale, and anyway, really cool. You know what? I guess like back then I had like big dreams, and that didn't align always with what this dude's agenda was. And I think there was maybe a sense of jealousy when there was success. And, you know, at first I tried to help, but I don't know, it was not going anywhere. I ended up moving into a new building, and initially he was going to come with us, but he, it just, I guess like things just sort of like collapsed around it, and it just, I don't know, relationship breakdowns. His business model was totally different to what I was doing. So they were very separate entities, but we just happened to cohabitate in the same space. So looking back on it, I think that, you know, that probably was a bit of a learning curve for me, because I think it was really important that, you know, if you're going to start a business with someone, you need to have, well, not like we didn't have a business together, but just even like having some sort of partnership or sharing a space, you know, you need to have boundaries, or there needs to be, you know, everything clearly defined at the beginning.
Totally.
So, yeah, and I think that was one of the learning things. But, you know, beyond him moving out and still owing me lots of money, for bills and that sort of thing.
Gypsies.
Yeah, I guess there was a few challenges. Yeah, I guess probably my business model itself has changed over the years. Like I started quite small. Like I said, I started like offering essentially what was just workshops and like for people, and then it changed to becoming an actual education provider. And within that, like I met a lot of people who were really super doubtful about it, because I was really young at the time when I first started. Like I'm 31 now, even though you probably think that I'm 24. But,
you do look fat. Really fabulous.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess like I was really young when I first started the school. So people were like, what is this school? Like, school of what? Amateur hour? Like, and there was a few people in the industry, like people who had maybe other RTOs and things like that, and they really looked down on what it was that I was doing because we weren't backed by government. We were literally offering private courses and that was it. We were a private school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I don't know. It was one of those things that, for me, like when I first started the business, I looked at all of our competitors in great detail, and I found that, some of them were, quite unethical, and it was nothing about what I just didn't want to be like them. And for anybody who knows a little bit about the world of registered training organizations knows that it is probably one of like the most corrupt, disgusting industries. And they're literally ripping people off left, right and centre, signing people up for courses, collecting government vet fee help student loans, and signing people up for courses who probably should never have even been enrolled in the first place. Like they don't even speak English or something, or they come from very, very poor environment, and they say, hey, sign up for this course and you'll get an iPad. And they're like, yay, iPad. And they're like, yeah, and you get money from the government. Ooh, it's as if it's free money. But then they don't actually comprehend that it's a debt and you actually do have to pay for your tuition.
Mm-hmm.
But these organizations are just signing them up and then people just don't even go to the course. Like it, and at the time, vet fee help was like uncapped. So I was like, I don't have anything to do with vet fee help. I don't have anything to do with like these government RTOs because they're so dodgy and they actually don't help people in our industry get work. So at the heart of it, I looked at, well, what is the actual product that we're offering? Well, we're offering professional makeup artistry courses that help our students get all the skills and the tools that they need to be able to actually do the job in the real world. And I guess I copped a lot of flack initially because, we were private school.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember going to an education trade expo and I had this woman from a school on the Gold Coast. She was like the owner manager or whatever. And in front of like all of these other educators and also our team, she said, oh, how is it that you can be offering courses that are like unregistered? And how is it that you think that you can compete like with schools like this?
Wow.
And as I said, well, how is it that you can sleep at night knowing that you're offering these dodgy programs? How is it that your students are actually getting work? But they're not.
That's crazy.
Like, I'm very comfortable with what it is that we're offering because, everything that we're saying that we're doing. Like, it's not hidden under the guise of, like, government funding and, like, these dodgy advertising, It's
so crazy, like, just delving into that whole education thing. Because I remember even at uni, like, people would have that blasé mentality, oh, if I don't pass, who cares? I just have to repeat the subject. It's like, yeah, but you're also having to pay for a whole other semester. Like, it's money that they don't really see, or they don't know what they want to do after school. They go to school after school, so you just go to uni for the sake of it. But they've got this $20,000 HECS debt that's racking up as well.
Education providers are definitely taking advantage of the mentality that Australians have, which is like they're entitled to education.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you have to do it anyway, so do it. There's a lot of dodgy education providers out there.
Yeah.
It's like the industry is just like full of them. And over the years, like every single intake and every single year, we're constantly improving what we do so that, we can make sure that not only are we, doing things responsibly for the students, but again, for our industry as well.
Yeah.
Because, the industry changes. So the skills and the different requirements that the industry needs, like that also, needs to adapt as well. So we need to, always be on the forefront of what's happening, what's coming. Mm.
So when you're not just snatching up all these amazing awards for the Gold Coast things with trophies and doing people's makeup for the Olympics,
I didn't really do a lot of makeup for that. I actually didn't really do a lot of makeup. So that's an interesting one, actually. So
it's a good one for the resume.
Yeah, it's funny with the Common Games. Actually, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about interesting.
Tell me.
Here's the scoop. So I was the head makeup artist for the Commonwealth Games, and we had altogether close to 7,000 people that required something to do with their aesthetic. That there were all of these people that at some point had been touched by our department, and everybody from mass cast through to professional talent, like dancers and performers, through to headline talent, and dignitaries and athletes and everybody in between. So it was a really big job, and it's funny because when I was first heard about the job, this guy approached us at the school looking for volunteers. And I was like, oh yeah, how many do you need? And he said, oh, maybe we need 70. And I was like, oh, easy, I can get you 70 makeup and hair people, sort of thing. And he was like, oh, great. I said, well, who's organised it? Who's actually going to be running the team? And he goes, I'm not sure, but I'll put you in charge of the people who are. So I got this phone call, and they wanted to talk to me about offering me a position. And they sort of did a phone interview sort of thing about being in charge of the department. She said, how is it that you'll cope under the pressure? It's a pretty big task, and you haven't done a big production like a Games before, because it's not like your regular production. It's like a $19 billion production. It's huge, and months of organisation. So she said, how do you think you're going to cope? And I was so blasé about it. I was like, well, if I can organise a school, I can organise your event. It's fine. I got this.
I got this.
And I was honestly really black and white. And it was funny because I think at the time when she had called me, I was in between lots of things, as I always am, and I had some photo shoot I think that was happening that evening, and it was in the afternoon, so I was kind of dismissive almost, it's fine, I've got this, you can either take me or you don't, whatever. And as it turns out, we had this big staff orientation, so I'd gotten the job, and we went to this orientation, and they were like, oh, and it was massive. There was hundreds of people. There's big screen TVs, big projectors everywhere, and it was a bit of a production in itself. And then they said, and now introducing the executive producer for the entire Commonwealth Games, Merrin. And then everyone's clapping, and then this woman who had interviewed me first, that was her. She was the big boss, and she was the one who was super, yeah, whatever, I can, you want, who else would do the job, really? And that was kind of the approach I had. And it's funny because after doing it, I really do feel they couldn't have done it without us, because I did come with the entire school. And, I had to fight to have our students to get work experience on it. And obviously I wanted them to have an amazing experience as well and to be a part of it. But we couldn't have done it without them, because they wouldn't allow us to have enough staff. And there were so many problems along the way with the Games. I
can imagine.
Oh, yes. Oh, so many problems.
I don't even
Our team did amazing, mind you. Just saying. We did very well. And actually everyone all the producers were really happy. But imagine in one show with the opening ceremony, there was 24 or 26 different segments, and each segment had its own directors and its own producers. And within that, a whole, massive web of different team who were working and being able to deliver these things. One group of mass cast might have 400 people in it. So, it's a really big scale sort of thing. So there's obviously going to be, issues and problems along the way. But I found that it was interesting. There was some of the team were flown in from different places, and there was a couple of people, some in particular who I won't name, but they were from Sydney, and they were oh, the Gold Coast people, they're always the ones stuffing everything up. I was like, what? Get stuff? Like, you're incompetent. Like, and that's I wanted to say that, but they, obviously you've got to bite the tongue. And I suppose, like, for me, it was like the first time I was ever doing like a big games. And so whenever people would sort of have these ideas about how they should do things, and I'd be questioning it in my mind, I just would bite my tongue because I was thinking, oh, no, they've already done games before. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things kind of progressed and got closer to the actual event, I was like, oh my gosh, these people.
No idea.
Wow. Like, if they ran this thing like a business, they would go broke. And that's just how I thought about it. So
how did you cope with the stress of it?
Well, it's funny because I was also juggling the school as well. So I was working like massive days. I remember one time I looked at my phone and I'd run like 18 kilometers up, like, how like your phone app tells you like tracks. I'd done 18 kilometers and I'd gone up like 12 flights or something like that of stairs because it was really spread out where the games were, and I was literally running between destinations, and I thought, I deserve a medal here. So, yeah, but I guess like it was stressful. I guess for me it was that there were some real asshole people who were working in some of the departments. Not all of them. Most of them were actually really nice, but there was a couple of people who were just rude, like for the sake of being rude. Like, and they'd say things like, we'd be looking at products and they'd ask me to put together like a stock list or a budget for different things, and then they'd say, oh no, this is way out, this is way more than what it should cost, and then instead of it just being like something that we would discuss and say, oh, it's expensive, there's not a budget for it because of XYZ reasons, it was you're flashy and you're this and that, and actually coming at me because had an aesthetic that they kind of, I don't know, they thought that I was just like this young, crazy guy who was really into designer brands and all that. And they would really push that onto me all the time. And I was like, wow, is that really what you're reading when you look at me? Like, is my aesthetic that, you think that I'm just so showy and that? Because I feel like I'm not. Like, and that really sort of bugged me a lot. Yeah, so I guess I was like, maybe, yeah.
I guess that happens with business too. Like, people see you from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
And they might see you online and they get this idea of who you are. And, some of us are really out there on our social medias and others are not. But, I sense that the community out there feel like they know who you are, or they have this preconceived idea.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with business too, like people's judgment and criticism and them thinking one thing of you. Like, I hear it so many times when people meet one of us in person, they're like, oh my God, you're so nice, or you're so different, or you're not what I thought you were. It's just like, I guess just what happens when you're in the spotlight.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And I mean, it could have been like in contrast to this woman who like turned up to work in a bloody pajamas. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry that like I put a bit more pride into my aesthetic. Like, we're all working long hours, mate. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, get over yourself. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the games was an amazing learning experience for me. As talking about getting real, how about this? You'd think that a production like that would have plenty of dough. But, and really when I first got into it, I was thinking, you know what? Like, the wage that they were paying wasn't great, but it'll be good marketing. And that's literally the only reason why I did it in the beginning. I thought, it's good marketing. I'm sure this is worthwhile. So that was wrong. I started, and then they were like, you can't tell people that you're working on it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? I was like, I have a business outside of here, and people need to know about it. But they were so strict that they're like, anybody who knows needs to sign an NDA. And I was like, what? Like, this is different from other productions that I've worked on. Even like big budget productions aren't that strict, but I said, okay, that's fine. So then I end up, I guess like for me, what's going on?
My phone just
your phone's got a mind of its own.
It just keeps turning on and playing random music.
That's fun. But so I guess I thought it was going to be like this amazing marketing thing. And as the games progressed, they sort of like changed their tune a little bit, and they kind of opened up and allowed us to sort of speak more. But that even just everything along the way, it was like it was just like a constant battle, it seemed. One time, like we had ordered all this stock, and this was so annoying. So we had to get all the stock in before a particular date because of security reasons. That it had to get scanned and it had to get sniffer dogs all through it. And it was because of the significance of the project, which I understand. But they put a lot of stress on us to like get it sorted in time. But then the people who had to sign off on what you were spending were also really behind on what they were doing. So they kept on like pushing things back. And I'd say, I need to get answers now.
You're relying on someone else.
I'm relying because I need to fly the stock in and we need to get things here so that it arrives on time for this. And then at one point they had like, because I've got all these amazing suppliers who helped us out and got us really good deals. But one particular thing, we had like a day or something left before they had to sign off on it, before the stock had to get shipped out. So I said to the brand, I said, look, it's most likely going to go through because I can't see how we're going to be able to do this without all this stuff. And they said, yep, no worries. So they spent all this time packing the crates of stock to come up. And then the people who were in charge of making the call of saying, yep, you can do it or not, said at the last minute, they kept on going, oh, no, we'll get to you later, and kept pushing me back. And I think it got to like 1 p.m. and we needed an answer by 2 p.m. or something like that. And then they, we ended up having a meeting at like 2:15. And then during that meeting, they were like, yeah, you can't do it. And I was like, you got to be kidding. Like, I've literally, like, this is not just me ordering stock and saying, hey guys, yeah, don't worry about that. We don't need it now. Like, it's, no, this is a reputation that I've got with my suppliers that I've built up for years. And now I've got to go to them and say, we're not ordering all that stuff. So I think I absorbed about $12,000 worth of stock into the school. And if, like, I didn't have a school that could do that, like, then that would have been, really bad.
So you didn't want to have your reputation tarnished, so you just got the stock.
I just took the stock, extra stock, and even and with the games, as far as like paying their expenses, like it took them months after the games to pay the expenses. Like I had racked up maybe $23,000 worth of expenses on my own card.
I love hearing these real and raw stories because, like I said, you've had some crazy success, but it's also the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's the risk that you take. It's the opportunities that you put yourself out there, even when maybe the financial reward's not there. But it's like you said, it's networking, it's making a reputation, it's getting your name out there, it's marketing.
Yeah.
So I love that you've been real and raw about that kind of stuff. But what does happen behind the scenes when you're not achieving all this stuff? What does an average day in your life look like? I know we mentioned before you're up until like 11 o'clock at night sometimes. Like, what does business actually take to be successful?
Yeah. Well, the other day, I think I did like a 17-hour day, and I got home and I was obviously tired, and but I didn't feel like, I was almost like proud of myself. I was like, yeah, you buddy, you're a boss. And one of my mentors, and she's a good friend of mine, she's the managing director of a super large cosmetics company, and we get along like house on fire, and she's really sort of like, she's an interesting lady. She's a Chinese lady, and she's all of like 4 foot high, like she's a tiny little hobbit, and she has this like really interesting personality. She's like really abrupt. She's actually an engineering background, and a corporate background. So cosmetics is was not her background, but she's kind of been propelled into this industry. So she can be really black and white about things, and she has some really interesting opinions about creatives. And, but yeah, she said to me a couple of years ago, and I've really sort of hung on to it, is that she said, "Oh, Michael," she said, "what kind of hours are you doing for work?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "How many hours are you working?" I was like, "Quite a bit." She's like, "You need to work more." I was like, what? What do you mean? She's like, oh, you need to really appreciate like that, this time in your life when you're, before you turn like 40, she's like, you have so much opportunity to work long hours and to like build something for yourself. And she said that in a corporate world in engineering, that all of the young engineers and business development people, they would actually thrive off the opportunity to do really long hours, and they would almost wear it like a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. Like, you work these long hours, and that's like,
you've got what it takes.
Yeah, got what it takes. Mm-hmm. And it's this real Chinese mentality, and I just loved it. Like, I don't know, I was thinking, like, you should be proud of the work that you put in. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's like maybe a misconception about like entrepreneurship, like break the 9 to 5 so that you can like
work 9 to 9.
Work 9 to 9. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what, there's obviously the perks that come out of it as well. But I guess like, I really enjoy, even though it's long hours, like I love it. And that's the benefit for me that I see. But it can be like really, really hard at times as well. Like you do take on a lot. And I think having a school as well, it's different to, when you've got these people who, your client or your customer, they're not just like purchasing a product and then it's like, okay, go enjoy the product. Mm-hmm. Like they're with you for the duration of their course. You ride every high and low that they're having as well. And initially when I first started business, that was something that I used to get really caught up on. We'd have students that have like come from the most troubled backgrounds and have had the most intense experiences, and might have something happen with like a student, and it's really intense and it's hard not to take it on board. Yeah.
Totally. I think that just comes with like when you're so passionate about what you do for your business, you also absorb all the energy that comes through it. Like you want people to succeed, and when you see them upset or you see them not winning or you see whatever's happening for them, we're like empaths, really. Like we really feel that as business owners, and that can be tough.
Yeah.
That hurts sometimes. Like I know what that's like. It's painful.
Yeah. Well, actually, class finished last night, probably around 8:30. I stayed back because there was like students talking to me about stuff, and like I wouldn't trade it actually, like because I think that in life, like we as humans have like a responsibility to each other that you should be there in some capacity. It doesn't matter like whether you're like the big boss or whether you're a worker. Like you need to just appreciate that we're all human, and sometimes people just need to talk and they just need to, we need to be there.
A really nice note to end the show, and just being there. And I think at the end of the day, that's what business is all about. Like get rid of the shiny word entrepreneur or whatever you want to label it. It really is about helping people and meeting a need, and sometimes it could be a school, it could be education, it could be a place to connect, it could be a place to feel like they do have a purpose and they do have something to give back to the world and somewhere to grow. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your love and light with us. Now we've been chasing you for ages.
Thank you.
It was so good to chat, and I just wish you all the success, and I know you will just keep crushing it. We're going to continue watching your journey. You deserve all the accolades that you get, so thanks for being on.
Thank you. No, thank you guys so much. I had a really great time, and if anybody wants to like connect with the school, like you can definitely do that. And if as well as, if you're, it's one thing to like be interested in makeup, but actually genuinely, if anybody wants to learn more about, or has a question about business or something like that, I don't know, if you want some feedback or advice on something, I don't mind if you hit me up on it. Yeah, you can definitely message through, because I think that it's important for like other businesses to connect with each other. I'm really big on collaboration, and I would like to be able to help out if other people are having trouble, because I know that I definitely bounced off so many other business owners as well when I first got started, and
so important.
Part of my success and journey has been that. So.
Well, we will have all of Michael's links and social media and website, everything to connect with him in the show notes. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We hope you loved today's episode of the Babes Talking Business podcast. We're loving bringing you these episodes. Our mission really is to share and add value to your week, whether you're a budding entrepreneur or you're a veteran and you've been owning your own business for quite some time. Don't forget, if you're loving our podcast, we would absolutely love and appreciate for you to rate us and drop in some love on the iTunes app by giving us some feedback. We want to do something really exciting, and we want to do a shout out of the week every week on our Instagram for anyone who reviews us. So please make sure you leave us 5 sparkly stars and you give us your feedback, but don't forget to add your Instagram handle or website so that we can shout you out. You can follow us on Instagram at Babes Talking Business, or you can check out our website at www.babestalkingbusiness.com. You can check out the Health Style Emporium online holistic health program, our beautiful sponsors over at www.thehsc.net. All of these links are available below in our podcast notes and on our website. Thanks for tuning in.